welcome to the Cast Off. This is the #1 recasting show on the internet where two contestants compete by recasting your favorite actors in movies you love. I'm your host, Craig Price, and tonight we are going to prove that old action stars never die. They just rehash their glory days with younger actors. That's right, we're recasting the Expendables, and we've got some great competitors today from a regular contributor to Matinee Heroes and a judge of the Cast-Off, where she's not judging today, so she's not been judged. Elisabeth Rappe, and from Everything I Learned from Movies, Steve Kondrick. Hey guys. Well, we'll start off with Elisabeth. Elisabeth, you have a guest as well. This is the first time he's been on the podcast. He's been on the podcast, but because we talked about him at length when we did In Bruges, which just came out a couple weeks ago. But you have a new buddy.
I do. I did not plan this. This is Jesse, and he decided he was going to be on camera today. So everyone's going to think I planned this, but I didn't. He just banged open the door.
Yes. It's a new dog, so he doesn't quite know how to react when it's filming time. So it's better to have him in your lap being quiet than outside the door whining or scratching or howling.
Exactly.
And they're pugs. They can howl. Gertrude, she can really scream now that she's getting older. And we take her food away from her, she's like...
Yeah, they really sound like rabbits being murdered when they're not happy.
Oh, always a pleasant thought, especially since, as we're recording this on Easter, so that's always good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, your opponent this week is going to be Steve Kondrick. Steve, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, and two can play at that game. I got the little toady twin Cameron here.
Oh, look at that. He's like, if one person can do it, I can do it. All right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to have to compete, just add more little living beings to the screens.
Oh, I've got like a dozen rats upstairs. Yeah, we don't want to play that game.
The parrot's always in the background on a lot of the...
Now, the rats are pets, correct? Or are they snake food?
They're pets. Okay. They're my wife Izzy's pets.
So your wife collects rats.
Yep.
He says as a man who is broken and has resigned himself to live with 12 dozen rats. All right. So May is always a theme month. So what is May at Everything I Learned from Movies?
Well, oddly enough, since we're talking about the Expendables, it's Jason Matham.
Jason Matham. Okay.
Matham.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about the Crank movies. We're going to talk about The One. We're going to talk about In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege Tale.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, we're running the gamut.
Oh, wow. Well,
The Mechanic Resurrection. Everybody seems to forget about that one.
For good reasons. So,
indeed.
Well, we'll stay tuned for Matham, and he will be a part of today as well. But let's get to the rules, because we do have a show to get to. And the rules are fairly simple. Really change very often. I'll name a character and in the movie, and our contestants will recast that with an actor throughout all in time and space. So I can tell you right now, there's a lot of 70s actors that are in this today, a lot of 80s actors in this, which makes sense because it's the Expendables, an homage about the 80s. And so the best choice gets 1 point. If you also get my secret selection, that's an additional point, or a point by itself, because let's be honest, most of the time my choices are the best choices. When it's not, it's because Elisabeth and Brendan have gone off the rails and are totally wrong. But that's how it goes. Person with the most points wins, and if there is a tie, we will do a double feature to win, and I'll explain that when and if it's necessary. So, as always, this show is brought to you by Matinee Heroes, and this May, we're focusing on summer fun as we kick off the month with the classic Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You can head over to matineeheroes.com/subscribe to follow the podcast. And you can also hear tonight's post-show exclusively on the audio version of Cast Off every Thursday in the Matinee Heroes feed. And while you're there, you can if you enjoy the Cast Off, you can go to matineeheroes.com/castoff and subscribe to the video feed. We certainly need the people. We've been stuck at 80 for 6 months. It's really crazy. It's like we have topped off, and it's like an exclusive club now. No more. That's not true. We want as many as we can possibly get. So head over to matineeheroes.com/castoff and pick your favorite video feed to subscribe. All right. Well, let's get our 80s action on in a 21st century way with the testosterone-driven The Expendables. And since this is going to be testosterone-driven, of course that means, Elisabeth, you go first.
All right. This was hard. I haven't actually seen this movie.
Yeah. Excuse me, I've got a cough going as well. So we're going to start off with the man himself, Sylvester Stallone, who is the living embodiment of 80s action, playing the leader Barney Ross. So Elisabeth, who do you have playing Barney Ross?
I went. This was hard because there's nobody that but Stallone that can really replace Stallone. But I went with I played Doctor Who rules, and I picked 1978 Clint Eastwood.
And when we're talking 1978 Clint Eastwood, we're talking about, of course, the Which Way movies, the beginning, Every Which Way But Loose, as we see him here as the great Philo Beddoe. Clint Eastwood as squinty-eyed appeal. Here he's got, this is the widest I've seen his eyes ever in any movie. The Dirty Harry movies, In the Line of Fire, Unforgiven, The Outlaw Josie Wales. So why Clint Eastwood?
Well, I mean, he's my all-time favorite. And this era of him, he was kind of like he as close to a schlubby loser on screen as he could be. And and the Expendables is such a I mean, even though I admitted I haven't seen it, it's sort of a last chance of glory kind of movie, and so that's why I went with that era, because he was toying with that a little bit before he went full on 80s action hero again himself.
So kind of a collection of schlubby losers is Expendables. That's the name. Now, Steve, we're going to start off with you, and Vegas odds have you, and this was totally random how this came out, that you got a high chance of winning because the Expendables is like a movie that's right in your wheelhouse. How many times have you seen this movie?
I have seen it probably 4 or 5 times, and yes, I've seen all 3 Expendables movies. Do they get better? No, but they get more. So
who do you have to go up against Clint Eastwood, who's one of my favorites as well?
I mean, Clint Eastwood's a great pick. I went for my Barney Ross. I went with a veteran of the action game for the last 30 years, Michael Jai White. Just as a great leader and frontman for this team.
Oddly enough, I did not know this. He is the first African American comic book movie hero, as he was in Spawn. Absolutely, he got to start playing Mike Tyson in the HBO movie Tyson. He was in The Dark Knight, Mortal Kombat, Rebirth, and Ringmaster. So he has been around for quite a while. And we have Clint Eastwood, Michael Jai White, and the judges without Elisabeth. So this is she must be lost. She's probably judging going, it's got to be Clint Eastwood. And she's right. It is Clint Eastwood.
Oh, no.
So Elisabeth, you get the first point. I went with Daniel Craig, and I went with some superior actors in this, and because I think he's got that, I'm going to be the leader, I'm going to take charge, I'm going to be the kick-ass guy, and you'll see that almost all my actors, except for the very last one, could have been, I think they've all been nominated or have won Oscars. So I went the totally different way. 80s action stars? No. I went with actual thespians.
Yours is like the old Vic casting.
Yes. Yeah. Except with no Kevin Spacey on this one. So to celebrate Maytham that you're doing, Steve, we'll start with you. Who do you have to replace the second in command and knife expert? Because I've never watched this movie either, Elisabeth. So you're not alone. I have literally. I have never seen this movie. I did not watch it for this. All I did was look up some character breakdowns, and so apparently he's the second in command. He's a knife expert, and he loves his girlfriend. That's what I learned from. And so, Steve, tell me how right or wrong I was.
I mean, the relationship's pretty problematic, but he does defend her honor in a way.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for my with Lee Christmas or Lloyd Christmas, I forget which one's Dumb and Dumber and which one's Jim Carrey. No, I went with Wesley Snipes.
Oh, yeah. Wesley Snipes is now. When you have Wesley, you know you've got a blood-sucking badass, as we saw from the Blades movies. He plays a great villain in Demolition Man, which I've actually seen more times than you've seen The Expendables. I know that's one of those movies that's not that great, but I love it. It's fantastic. White Man Can't Jump, New Jack City, and of course, I learned in Passenger 57, never bet never bet against black, or always bet on black, or something like that. There's some kind of
Always bet on black.
always bet on black. So so Elisabeth, who do you have to go up against? And he's still in great shape, Wesley Snipes.
Well, I went. I was like, again, I have not seen it. I was like, well, obviously there's a British guy, an Asian guy. So I went semi-British, and I went with Travis Fimmel. Almost went with Tom Hardy, but I went with Travis Fimmel because he has crazy eyes and he was a great Ragnar Lothbrok. And a Viking hottie.
Yes, he's a Viking hottie. I know that's why you picked him. In fact, you did pick Tom Hardy, and then immediately said, no, swap him for Travis Fimmel, who I had no idea until all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely an Elisabeth Rappe pick. I can feel you've already bought every ticket possible for the Norseman. You even probably got a Regal Unlimited card so you can watch that movie as many times as you want.
I did. I really did. I bought all the seats. I'm watching it all by myself.
But apparently he is the head Viking in Vikings, which I saw the first 2 seasons of. He's in the new HBO Raised by Wolves. Warcraft, he was in Die in a Gunfight, Dreamland, so it kind of peters off after the first 2. Apparently this is in Raised by Wolves. He's got this tattooing going on here. I don't know what this is all about, but Travis Fimmel, who I did not know about, so he's a new person to me. So we have Wesley Snipes, Travis Fimmel, and I think name recognition won out as Wesley Snipes.
I'm on the board.
As Steve ties it up. I went with Bradley Cooper.
Oh.
American Sniper-ish. I think he also can be that. Because once I saw that there was a girlfriend involved, I'm like, well, he's a guy that would defend a girl's honor. He's going to be that guy that's, a good guy who's just kind of thrown in with a bad lot with Sly and the Family Stone that they've got going here. So having not seen the movie, I have no idea what the rest of the Expendables are. So as we go through the tropes, you have to have an Asian, and you have to have a martial artist. The fact that he's got a gun is crazy because they call him he's the unarmed master in this movie. And so we have the great and powerful Jet Li playing the horribly inappropriately named Yin Yang. Because this looks a little...
Oh, there's more of those names to come.
Oh, I know. I know. So, Elisabeth, who did you pick to pick up the Asian gauntlet and run?
I went with Hiroyuki Sanada, who I primarily know from the Wolverine, but he's awesome. He's been in lots and lots of things, and he just sort of always end up like the sidekick, which he will in this film as well, to the white guy, but he does it very well.
Well, yes, Hiroyuki Sanada is a great actor.
Yeah, I didn't pronounce it right.
And it's okay. I don't know if I said it correctly either. This is how I pronounce it. So... But between the two of us, I'm sure we've got it covered. But I didn't realize this, but he has made a name for himself in Japan as he sings the main songs from his movies. And so he's like Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan has a pretty good discography going on. He's a big-time singer in China. Hiroyuki Sanada is a big-time singer in Japan, as we've seen him in Mortal Kombat, Rush Hour 3, The Last Samurai, and then we start getting into the new century with 47 Ronin, and Avengers Endgame. He is definitely one of those top-notch guys. So I will turn this over to you, Steve. Steve, who do you have to be the Asian sidekick?
Pickles wanted to join the show as well.
Oh, Pickles.
Just to say howdy. Good old Pickles Cage.
Pickles Cage. Good God.
Oh.
So I went with 70s martial arts action icon Mr. Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly, former football Buffalo Bills quarterback. Nope, that's not true.
No,
He's the martial artist. When you said Jim Kelly, I'm like, who the hell? The only Jim Kelly I know played for the Buffalo Bills and lost 4 times in the Super Bowl. But he is the Black Samurai. He's in 3 the hard way, which is going to be a running theme as we move forward. He is Black Belt Jones. He was in Enter the Dragon, and 1 down, 2 to go. So I love this picture of him because this is a perfect picture of the 70s blaxploitation kung fu masters.
I like the puka shells too, like that. Just, that just adds to it.
You got to have the puka, and then you got that one finger that's got tape on it, just because God forbid that one little knuckle gets hurt. So we've got Hiroyuki Sanada, Jim Kelly, and the judges decided we're not going to take the only Asian off the table. We have to replace it with an Asian. So we got Hiroyuki Sanada as Elizabeth gets 2 points.
They're not Bills fans, huh?
Yeah, no, no. Being a lifelong Patriots fans, the Bills have always been a nice little scapegoat for us recently, but in the 90s, they were the bane of existence.
Now they're just 2 wins a year, right?
Yeah, I went with Ken Watanabe because he's awesome as well. He's like Hiroyuki. And in fact, I almost put a picture of the two of them together, but I didn't want to show that as favoritism. But I think he can do no wrong. Well, now we get to the betraying drug addict that is Gunnar Jensen, played by Dolph Lundgren. So, from what I understand, he is a drug addict who then leaves the Expendables, or is kicked out of the Expendables, and joins the bad guys to give them intel, and then somehow redeems himself. I think this is just because Sly and Dolph they like each other, but not enough where he's going to treat Dolph right. So he's like, "You're going to be you're going to be a drug addict, and you're going to betray everybody, but don't worry, you're going to come back."
But I'm a chemical engineer. Why would I also be a drug addict?
Yeah, no, he's the smartest of all the Expendables. I just don't think anybody knows that. In real life, he's a very brilliant guy. So, Steve, who do you have playing the betrayer, Gunnar?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Three the Hard Way, obviously, because I went with Fred the Hammer Williamson, star of the 70s and 80s blaxploitation movies, another former NFL player turned actor. Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you say it like I'm the one that's making the decisions. You obviously picked the last two, so you knew he was in Three the Hard Way. It's not a coincidence. You picked him. He's Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, the Hammer. Yeah, Fred Williamson, not to be confused with Fred Williams, also known as Remo Williams. I always get that Fred confused. He was but this is the blaxploitation awesome Fred Williamson. So, Elisabeth, he seems to be going with blaxploitation. Who do you have to be the drug addict?
I went with sort of becoming, a recently bigger name, but I went with Alan Richardson, it's Richardson. I always throw an N in there, and it's not.
It's Richardson.
But the new Jack Reacher, who looks like a big Nordic drug addict.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of, I think, I don't know, maybe he's high on Jesus. I'm not sure, but he's really manic.
Well, if he's Norse, he's high on Odin. Yes. And let's be honest, Elizabeth's got a type. And so,
You sound like a racist. Like here's all these. Like,
no. You like a certain guy, and if he's going to
like
play a Norseman,
that's like an Aryan super race.
No, hey, believe me, if you could make an Aryan super race with some of these guys, I know you would. Alexander Skarsgård, you are on warning. So he is known for being a CW superhero because he was Aquaman in Smallville, on Hawkman in Titans. But sometimes you just want to be a mocap guy, and he was Raphael in the Teenage Mutant Ninja movies. And then, of course, Catching Fire, and most recently he is the Tom Cruise replacement. So if Tom Cruise was on Hulked Out, so he's the Hulk to Tom Cruise's Bruce Banner in the Jack Reacher series.
More appropriate Reacher.
Yes, well, absolutely. So we have Fred Williamson, Alan Richardson. I don't know how to say his name either. So, and we're going with Fred Williamson. So, Steve, you have tied it up. Just when you think you've knocked him down, Steve pops back up. I went with Christian Bale because I think Christian Bale can play the betrayer and do the drug addict. He'd probably actually become a drug addict just because he's that kind of
like this is dangerous. Like he's gonna go get on drugs.
Yep.
Get off of drugs.
He's gonna betray his whole family just so he can figure out how to betray people properly. Absolutely. Well, now we get to the main baddie, James Monroe, played by the brother of Julia. That's right. It's Doctor Who's Eric Roberts. And I know he's Doctor Who's Eric Roberts because I just saw him at Gallifrey 1 a couple months ago, which is the Doctor Who special. He was the master in that ill-fated American version of Doctor Who that came out in the 90s for Fox Television. Oh. So, Elisabeth, who do you have playing I guess he's like a CEO. He's just the corporate suit who's paying for everything he's kind of fronting the drug lords and the generals. I don't know. He's the bad guy.
I
in a
recommend
suit.
you watch this movie sometime, Craig.
You
we can talk about it on Matinee Heroes another time.
No. This is not Matinee Heroes Fair. Oh my God, we have taste over there. So it's tough finding movies with 7 people in it. That's all I'm saying. So Elisabeth, who do you have playing the bad guy?
I went with classic. He's become classic slimy corporate bad guy, but I went with Guy Pearce because he's become a little bit of like a classy Eric Roberts, like the guy who won't do Sharktopoulos or whatever it was that I don't know, whichever sci-fi one Eric Roberts was in.
Yeah, no, because he would definitely be of the 2. He's the one that's going to win the Oscar. Eric Roberts is never going to win an Oscar, but Guy Pearce, known for smart, arrogant characters, he was slimy in L.A. Confidential, and in Memento, Iron Man 3, he played a really slimy nerd, and then he turned into a really slimy, superpowered guy. So yeah, Guy Pearce, that's good. I like that one. Who do you got, Steve, to battle Guy Pearce?
Well, to do this James Monroe character, I went with Congo's Monroe Kelly himself, Mr. Ernie Hudson.
So you just went with a name. Is that what I'm thinking?
And also an incredible actor.
I didn't say he wasn't. I'm just saying that you mentioned Monroe, but of course, he's known for loving this town. And that's New York and Ghostbusters. He was also the head of the FBI in Miss Congeniality, I think, or at least he was like a director in the Basketball Diaries. And of course, the only reason you even thought of him is because he is in Congo, your singularly favorite movie of all time.
And The Crow. No, I'm just kidding.
He was in The Crow and in Airheads. That's correct. Yes.
That's right.
So we have Guy Pearce, Ernie Hudson. The judges thought long and hard and said, who's the slimiest guy they can find? And that's got to be Guy Pearce. And Elisabeth gets the point. I went with Kurt Russell. Because I think Kurt Russell could play that corporate slime guy very easily. We all love him, and I think that would be part of the problem, is that we just love him so much despite the fact he's just a scumbag. I'm assuming he's a scumbag. I don't know. Eric Roberts is playing him. Eric Roberts almost always plays scumbag. It's just the way it is.
It's a lucky guess, Craig.
All right. And now one of the worst named characters of a slew of badly named characters, Hail Caesar. That's not a statement. That's his name, H-A-L-E, Hail Caesar, played by the peck pulsator himself, Terry Crews. Steve, who do you have playing, Hail Caesar?
Well, since I already picked Black Caesar with Fred Williamson, I went with his Three the Hard Way co-star, Dr. Jim Brown.
Oh, Jim Brown, obviously, football legend Jim Brown. This one I can say he did play for the, in football with the Cleveland Browns. They named the Browns after him. He was so good.
That's right.
He was in the Dirty Dozen, Three the Hard Way, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Oddly enough, the last game you played, Steve, was Mars Attacks, and he was in that. So, so you've got a kind of a thing going for Jim Brown. But why not? He's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Elisabeth, who could you possibly go up against Jim Brown?
It was hard because I kept going, I'll cast Terry Crews. And then I was like, no, that's who originally did it. But I went with, I drew such blanks, but I went with 1987 Carl Weathers.
Yeah. So of course, he's known for being the action second banana, as Apollo Creed is second banana in the Rocky movies. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's second banana in Predator. He was Harrison Ford's and Robert Shaw's, I guess, third or fourth banana in Force 10 from Navarone. He was Adam Sandler's second banana in Happy Gilmore. And then finally he became the main banana in Action Jackson. Yes.
If you have a nice bone, you can get a stew going.
We all know him for Arrested Development. Absolutely. So we've got Jim Brown versus Carl Weathers, 2 former football players becoming international action stars. I think this was the closest vote of the night. And Elisabeth Rappe gets the call with Carl Weathers and goes up 4-2 with 2 points still on the board. I went with Richard Roundtree. So whenever I think of cool action guys from the 70s, I know there's Jim Brown. I always go with Richard Roundtree. It's just he's my go-to. In fact, last week I used this slide last week in Pulp Fiction. He's just so good. Nice. Well, finally, we get to one of the more aptly named characters, Tool, played by Tool, Mickey Rourke. So now apparently he is a tattoo artist who they use his tattoo studio as a hangout. I'm not sure he's actually involved in any of the action. I think he's only in the first movie because I think he got sick of all the stuff in the first movie and he only shows up for that. Is that true, Steve?
That is true.
Yeah. So Mickey Rourke, too good for the Expendables, despite the fact that Harrison Ford shows up in 3 or 4, I think, as a helicopter pilot.
Third, yeah.
See, I know some of what's going on with the Expendables. So, Elisabeth, you only have to block. You got 2-point lead, so you just have to make sure you have a good show here. Who do you have playing Tool?
This was really hard because I couldn't figure out who this character was from Wikipedia at all. So I just went with Danny Trejo because it's like, he fits into everything.
Yeah,
I have no rationale beyond that.
Yeah, you just got to find an intimidating-looking weirdo who's a sweet guy, and Danny Trejo fits the bill. Of course, known for the most on-screen deaths by anyone. He was in Heat, Machete Kills, From Dusk Till Dawn, Spy Kids, and of course, Muppets Most Wanted. Though this one is from the Muppets television show where he's teaching the chef how to make Trejo's tacos, because Trejo's tacos is his new thing, and it's great. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, go to Trejo's Tacos. It's great.
I am going to go there.
Yeah, let us.
Now I want tacos.
Yeah, and my wife and I will be happy to take you and Jesse and Russell to Trejo's Tacos. It's a place you can eat outside. We can bring the dogs.
Cool.
So, Steve, you've got an uphill climb because not only do you have to win this one, you also have to sync up with me. So who could you possibly get who I would know, because I don't watch a lot of...
I have to think like somebody who's never seen the movie. It's
That's
great.
Right. And so far you've gone blaxploitation. You've gone really good, but maybe some obscure actors like Jim Kelly. I don't think a lot of people who are just regular folks know who he is. I think cinema connoisseurs like yourself do. So who could you possibly put that I would know, I would pick, and would still fit the bill?
Everybody knows this one. I tried to think of someone who is involved in a lot of action movies, but not a whole lot of action for the most part. I went with Samuel L. Jackson.
Absolutely. The highest grossing actor in history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's made over $8 billion, but that's mostly because he's been in most of the Marvel movies.
Marvel, Star Wars, yeah.
And one thing I love about Steve is when you pick someone, and it's one of those things it's a make or break deal. You pick someone like Samuel L. Jackson, who was in The Incredibles, in Pulp Fiction, Goodfellas, Jurassic Park, Jackie Brown, all movies we've done here at Matinee Heroes. Like I said, I wish I could give extra credit for that, because you always have a tendency of finding someone who's been in more than 5 of our movies.
It's a shame it's not your show.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame that wouldn't be fair, because then it would definitely skew in a bad area. But you can't beat Sam Jackson. That's great. So we've got Danny Trejo, Samuel L. Jackson, and you know what? This is going to be very difficult because you have to win and you got to match me. I'm going with Danny Trejo. So Elisabeth, you have won today's match and get today's final thought.
I did not think I was going to beat. Oh, no, wait. I was like, not the 80s action man.
Oh, this is definitely an upset win, because odds in Vegas were heavily favoring Steve Kondrick.
I know. Steve should have won this. I feel wrong.
Oh, don't worry. I'm cashing in my ticket here any minute now.
So you have today's final thought, so go ahead and give us your final thought.
Well, I'll give it to, since Jesse decided to jump in on this one. If you were enchanted by his little face, go to Pug Hearts of Houston and get one of your own.
Absolutely. So congratulations, Elisabeth. Before we go on, I let you guys know that we're still 20 shy of 100. So please go to the YouTube channel and like, subscribe, and comment on the show. I appreciate Steve promoting it. I think that's how we went from 77 to 80. Make up names. Make up accounts.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch the show. Just subscribe, folks. Just subscribe. More importantly, though, we have some new T-shirts. I'm not live. I've just got Elisabeth sitting there. So we've got new T-shirts. And we've got the Sonic edition, and then, of course, we have the Spider-Man No Way Home edition. And just to show you that They are nice, and they do quite well. They're very well printed. I was concerned because there's a lot of transparency in some of these, so these came out great. So I'm very happy with that. So please head over to matineeheroes.com/store, and that'll take you to our official site. But we still have more to do, and there is a game next week, and who could possibly be better than you two? Well, we decided to go to Celtic hero Richard Jensen, filmmaker from Celtic Ray Films, and Movies That Make Us Trade, Tracy Mangum, as they go up against my hometown's movie, The Departed, from Beantown. So they're going to be redoing The Departed next week.
What is it with recasting these perfectly cast movies?
That's what makes it a competition and makes it difficult. If it's crap, it's easy to recast. I want them to go, who's better than Jack Nicholson? Nobody. So, who's better than Mark Wahlberg? Everybody. So it's one of those things where it's a little give and take. If you want to be part of the show, you can head over to matineeheroes.com/castoff/application, where you can definitely apply, and we will have you, if you have a podcast or if you have the ability to come on the show, odds are you could be on real quick. You can also email at mhcastoff@gmail.com. You can follow us at The Castoff Show on Twitter. We've got a Facebook group, the matineeheroes.com/castoff, to get the link to the YouTube channel and to follow us on twitch.tv/matineeheroes. We're on all kinds of places. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. The show plays everywhere. So we have more than 80 subscribers, but I do want to get that one on YouTube so I can get that custom URL so I can rub it in Steven's face.
Yeah.
And, of course, special thanks to our additional judges who definitely have seen this movie and love this movie.
Of course they have.
And, in fact, I will say that almost every vote came to these two. I was just incidental because it really was between Rob Irvin and Brendan Agnew. These two had decided both. So thank Rob Irvin and Brendan Agnew for deciding on tonight's wonderfully played game. And, of course, on behalf of our wonderful folks, Steve Kondrick for Everything I Love for Movies, and Elisabeth Rappe, who is, everybody is all excited that you're now exclusive to Matinee Heroes, you said. So it's one of those things like, we put a ring on it. She is one exclusively on the Matinee Heroes theme. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time on The Castoff.